Congratulations, you found the one station that plays Ghana's best urban music.
YFM.
Listen to YFM 107.9 Accra, 102.5 Kumasi, and 97.9 in Takoradi.
Mr. Gayheart Mensah is our guest on the Wiley the Board series today. I'm super happy to have him on here. Before the conversation began on radio, we had a very, very nice conversation off air. Chairman, welcome.
Thank you, Reverend.
It's good to have you out here.
Charlie, good to be
And
here.
you're looking good. Your kaftan, your guy, your plug be good. I was going to take the number off air, but if you be correct guy, you for link me that I like the material.
Thank you.
You're looking presidential. And wish you the very best in your race for the presidency for GJA. With your achievements and the kind of works that you put in, we definitely know when you get to the position, you do some good works and some great works to change the atmosphere here in Ghana.
We're looking forward to that.
I like that. So let's talk about your life story. We're here for Wiley the Board series today to, break it all down for everybody. Let's just say we're writing a story about Mr. Gayheart Mensah. First scene, where do we open? Where is he born? How is growing up like for him? Let's talk about you like we're talking about somebody today.
Thanks a lot, Reverend. And I'm happy to be in your studio today. I look forward to a very energizing conversation during my stay here. So Gayheart Mensah was born to Mr. and Mrs. Mensah, both of blessed memory.
Yes, so rest in peace.
I was born at Labadi.
Labadi here?
Yes,
okay.
I spent most of my growing up at Labadi. In between, I spent a bit of time outside the country. My father happened to be working with the diplomatic service then. And so my early years, I spent in Rome. And so I was in Rome for about 4 years.
So you speak Italian?
I wish I could. I was in Rome for about 4 years, and then we came back to Ghana, and my dad moved from the diplomatic service to the civil service. I attended school, my primary school, at the Nana Osaijan Primary School at Insawam.
All the way from Labadi?
From Labadi to Insawam, because my dad was working there then, and so I moved to join him. After primary school, I moved to St. Thomas Aquinas Secondary School.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm an old Tom, where I did my GCO level. So I was at Aquinas from 1997 to 1982. After O level, I joined Laboni Secondary School. I did my A levels with Laboni. I happened to be the senior prefect when I was at Laboni Secondary School.
SP.
Yes, so SP. And it was at Laboni that I started toying with the idea of being a journalist. Indeed, I was thinking between becoming a lawyer and a journalist. I felt a lot more calling in the journalism profession. As young as I was, I thought I could change the world then through writing. And that was the motivation, that was the pull that took me to the Ghana Institute of Journalism. Which I completed in 1988 and then went straight into work as a journalist. But growing up, I think one thing that struck me was my environment, was my community, was what you would virtually call the difficulty in holding on to an individual and saying that, look, this is a person that I want to be like. I think it was one of my biggest challenges.
How so?
How so? Because I think I restricted myself growing up to my immediate community. I didn't look beyond my community then. If I did, I think it was the quest to acquire knowledge. And that was what has been my driving spirit from childhood up till now. I had a lot of interest in knowledge. I somehow could tell that knowledge was power. But unlike others who had people virtually hand-holding them and guiding them, so that was what I mean by I didn't have that opportunity. And I say so because as I speak today, there are a number of people that I provide guidance for, both in their career and in their education. And very often I look back and I tell myself, I wish I have had that somebody who would have guided me as I grew up. So everything that I did, every decision that I made those decisions by myself. And so that is what I mean by the community and not really having that opportunity of guidance growing up.
But with all that you experienced, I mean, before we break it all down, you still managed to keep your head up until this point. I mean, you just mentioned that you mentor a lot of young guys and young ladies in their career and then in their lives as well. Do you let me just chip this one in. Do you by any chance believe in fate? You think there's a plan for us ahead? Something we just fall into, or we carry the bits ourselves?
I think to a very large extent. I mean, I believe in the concept of predestination. I might not be your typical every Sunday church goer, but I have a strong faith and a strong belief in the hand of God in most of the things that we do. And so, yes, I believe in the reference that you have made, but I also believe that in spite of that, a lot depends upon how we carry ourselves. A lot depends upon the decisions that we make. And a lot depends upon the extent to which we take ourselves serious. And so if you ask me, there is no luck anywhere. It depends upon how you prepare yourself for the opportunities that will present themselves to you. Opportunities that I might have received would have been opportunities that have been at the doorsteps of other people, but if you are not prepared for that, they will go past you. I'll give you a typical example. I mean, working with one of the corporate organizations, I mean, there was this guy, very, very solid in terms of his competence, in terms of his skills, in terms of his delivery. And then there was an opportunity for a very senior management role, and I had responsibility for deciding who moves into that role.
Okay.
Immediately, my mind was, it must be this gentleman. So I called for his CV, looked at his background, whatever, and then I came to realize that despite the skills that he had, despite his competence, he did not have a first degree. And this was a department that had people not just with first degree, but with masters and with double masters, who also were extremely good, except that I thought he was the best amongst them in terms of his delivery. Then I had to fight with myself as to how I allow a diploma-holding individual to be the boss of somebody who holds double masters, and who is not a walkover anyway. The opportunity went past him. And this is what I mean. We have to prepare ourselves to take advantage of the opportunities that are thrown before us.
Let's speak about preparations. I mean, as a young guy, you didn't really get spoon-fed on climbing up the ladder of your goals or your dreams. You definitely might have had one or two people you looked up to from afar, people you looked at and said, okay, maybe I might want to pick the form or the shape of this person, career-wise, maybe in terms of life and the kind of achievements that this person had made in the community. Maybe I would like to be like this person. When you saw these things in them, what were some of the sacrifices you had to make as a young boy in order to stay on your feet? You grew up in Labadi. I mean, every person knows how easy and fun life is around that side. You could have been anything on any side. What were some of the things you had to do, the decisions, if you remember, the decisions you had to take as a young boy in order to stay on your grind?
Okay. Before I come to some of those decisions that I had to make, let me quickly state that my growing up was very mixed. I had indicated that I spent the majority of my growing up living with a father who was a diplomat, who was soon to pass on. And for the majority of my secondary school life, I can tell you I took care of myself in terms of what to wear to school. My mom struggled to pay the school fees, but everything else was left to me. Wow. And so at a very early age, I had to work to earn money and attend school at the same time. Okay. And so when I finished Form 5, for instance, I went straight into teaching. I taught in primary school in order to put some money aside to pursue my sixth form course. And so I delayed going into sixth form for 1 year teaching. Okay. And even whilst I was in sixth form, the least opportunity I get, I go and teach vacation classes.
Go and hustle.
I tell you. And so as I sit here, there is no class I haven't taught before. From primary class 1 up to the master's level. I have taught in every class. Class 1, class 2, up to class 6. Secondary school, form of 1 to up to form 5. Sixth form, lower 6, upper 6, I have taught. First degree, master's students, I have taught every class as I sit.
Do you ever feel, before you get to the next one, do you ever feel at any point you missed the most interesting part of your growing up as a child, as a boy? Do you ever feel like that?
No, I didn't, because apart from having to do a lot of things by myself, I think I had a bit of fun as well. I don't regret my growing up. I don't regret my youth. I did have fun. So now, what are the decisions that I made? I mean, so I've mentioned one already. The fact that I had to today going into sixth form in order to go and teach and make some money. And then, in as much as growing up was difficult and fun, I look at those that I grew up with, my cousins, my friends. And very often when we have to step out and play football or get involved in one of those things that you would find the youth in communities like Labadi getting involved in, you will see me sneak out, pick a few books and go and sit at the trade fair because I don't want to be located. So I'll hide at the trade fair. At times I sit there all day and study, because if I am home, they would find me out. They will
find you.
And I'll have no choice than to follow them.
Wow.
So those were some of the decisions that I have to make in order to pursue my quest to acquire knowledge. Okay. I also think that one of the very difficult decisions I made was when after sixth form, I decided to go to the Ghana Institute of Journalism, and it was difficult. I had to look for a way and mobilize money to pay my own school fees. And I'll tell you, for most parts of my study at the School of Journalism, I walk from Labadi to school. Not because I'm trying to keep myself in a good health, but because I had no choice. And so what I used to do is wake up early in the morning, walk to campus, get there. When school closes, I would sit in the library for a while, allow everybody to pick his taxi or his trotro and go home, and then
last person to go.
Walk back to the house. I mean, I did that for a very long time. I know very well, and my very good friends know this, that I think at the final year, I had almost dropped out. Because
things got worse.
Yes, I couldn't continue again. I had almost dropped out at the final year. I mean, there were a few friends who realized that, and they sort of encouraged me and supported me, and then I got through. And so this is just to say that, look, I had a very amazing beginning as a son of a diplomat. It didn't continue that way. It got to a point where I had to
pick up your own life.
Yes.
And carry it.
Absolutely. And there were very, very difficult decisions that one had to make during that period. And I don't regret them anyway. I think they were still fun.
Wow. That's a beautiful story, you know. We haven't gotten to the deeps of it, but I mean, the mere fact that, this morning, my vitamin Y message was very simple. The fact that life might not be very beautiful, but then wherever it is, at any point in time in our lives, we find ourselves. However it is, we forsake them.
Absolutely.
And so if it's beautiful today, it's a clear indication that it can. I'm not saying it might. It can go south. If it does, still keep on going. And that's clearly what you did. It is said that ambition goes with sacrifice, right? In your opinion, through all that you said, what should be the ultimate driving force behind our ambitions as young people? I'm sure a lot of young people are listening now. What should be the driving force behind our ambitions, especially for young professionals? What should drive us? Is it the quest to just survive, the quest to attain something? What? Per your experience?
I guess we have different motivations. I guess we are driven to pursue certain paths based on persuasions that very often are grounded in our upbringing, the kinds of morals and values that we go through as part of our orientation and socialization. And so there will be different motivation. But, well, the question has been thrown to me. And for me, I think one thing that is upmost in my mind in making decisions is the desire to make an impact.
Okay.
I never want to be a pushover. I never want to be and also join. In everything that I have done, I feel like leaving a lasting imprint, and that is what drives me. And even in decisions that I have made regarding career moves, career decisions, I had always looked within and asked myself, what difference can I bring to bear in this career move that I'm making? What impact can I make? I'll give you a typical example. Probably that might not be a very strong impact, but just to illustrate what I'm talking about, I happened to find myself working in the UK with Talu Oil, and then I had an offer, headhunted by Vodafone, with a prospect of returning back to Ghana from the UK. I know when I returned from the UK to Ghana, there were a few people who kept on asking me, Gayheart, are you sure there was no problem? Are you sure you just resigned from London and came back to Ghana? But look, in the process of accepting that job, there were a number of people, very senior people, who told me, Gayheart, don't. You would not last 2 years in that job. If you last 2 years, it will be a miracle. And so I asked around and tried to find myself, why don't people last in that job? Because all those who have held that job before didn't go past 2 years. And I told myself, I would join and I will go past 2 years.
Go a step beyond that.
Absolutely. And for me, that was the motivation. So I moved from London, joined Vodafone. I did 6 years.
6 years.
I did 6 years.
As against the expected two. You gave them extra 4.
I'm telling you. And that, I mean, as at the time I lived, and I believe up till now, nobody has served in the capacity of Director of External Affairs for Vodafone for more than 2 years.
Oh, congrats.
So, yeah, I'm driven by the impact that I want to make. I also give another example. I told you I've taught almost every class before. At the early stages, I teach for purposes of survival.
Okay.
Now I teach because I want to make an impact. I teach because I want to share knowledge. I teach as an hobby. I don't teach because of the money that I'll earn out of it. Otherwise, I would never teach. I mean, I give you a typical example. I teach PR professionals, or I train PR professionals for the Institute of Public Relations. Okay. I mean, if I stand in the class and teach for 2 hours and mark scripts and all that, what I get is not even up to $50. It's not worth the time of researching. But I do it because I feel that my life journey, particularly my career, is such that there are a lot of experiences that I have been able to put together that will be difficult to get anywhere. And so I do that just because I want to share experience.
Yeah, you want to just impact that on them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow, beautiful. And so, guys, you've heard it. These are some of the things that can motivate you. I mean, pick yours, whichever one you relate to. Let's get on with it. Let's go back, all right? Let's go back or down memory lane again. Through your early years or days in your journalism career as a young journalist. I mean, after you struggled through school to make it, you got into the field and then you started working. How were things like for you? How do you even land your first job? Take us through all that.
So while I was even at the Institute of Journalism, I was writing stories. Interesting, I was writing for both graphic and I was writing for Times as well. And so when it was time for me to start national service, I was torn between doing my service with graphic and doing it at Times. Somehow I got posted to the Ghanaian Times, and so that was what took me there. Before I completed my service, Ghanaian Times had employed me.
Wow.
And so I had no choice than to remain there. I mean, those early days were fun, but I also think that, and in fact, I see it even in those that I have worked with along the line, and I will explain. Those days, the quest to excel was extremely high, okay? And those were the days when you go on assignment, you come back to the newsroom, you take a sheet or sheets of paper, you write your story in ink, okay? Blue ink. hand it over to your news editor, who will look through and make the necessary corrections before it is typed. What I hate to see those days was red ink in what I have written. I mean,
the corrections, right?
Yes. It hurts me, okay? But at the beginning, I was seeing a lot of red ink in my writing. But what I did was that whenever I see the red ink, I pick what I have written, I read through, and very often I come to the realization that whatever has been corrected is the best way to present it. Of course, there are a few times I've had run-ins with
So it's not like it was wrong. The best way.
The best way to present it. I mean, meaning the correction is correct.
Yes.
It's perfect. Of course, a few times I've had run-ins with my news editor argument. No, I don't think it should be this. But I think 90% out of it, I felt humbled. And my drive was to make sure that the next time I write, I shouldn't have red ink in what I have written. And so it continued, and the red inks continued to reduce until it got to a time when I write, my newsletter will not even look at it and just pass it on.
So you're fine.
I look at people I work with today, and my challenge is, no matter how you correct them, they come back with the same mistakes. And I don't think they feel their pride jolted when they have to be corrected at every sentence, every paragraph.
That's true.
They find nothing wrong with it. I found everything wrong with that, and that was my motivation to excel. And I think that if there is a message for the youth, one of them will be to tell them that, look, take yourself serious. Don't take things for granted. Look for opportunities to learn and improve yourself. It is not only about the classroom, it's also about the interactions that you have at your workplace. Take them serious.
Wow. And so you got in there, you did all these you made all these excellent moves, and at some point you became a presidential correspondent.
Yes.
What would you describe as the highlights of your working as a presidential correspondent?
Oh my God, there's a relationship with Jerry John Rawlings.
Wow.
Oh, I tell you, I mean, of blessed memory. Look, you cannot work with that gentleman without that gentleman affecting you. Despite all the stories, whatever you hear about.
I'm sure you might have heard stories before, you got opportunity of working with him.
Of course. And I tell you what, I mean, when I was asked to report from the presidency, I am a very lateral thinker, I don't want to say very objective-minded, but I look at issues and place them where they ought to be.
Yes.
And so I had a few challenges with some ministers of state as a young journalist. Had to ask them very piercing questions. I've been very critical of some of them. And I remember my first day in the office of the then president as a reporter, and I met two of these ministers there. They looked me up, down, and I told myself, I am not returning here, because I believe they saw in me an adversary.
Yes.
Okay. But somehow that didn't happen. My highlight of working from the presidency was getting to know the affable, the humane, and the very astute politician that Flight of Nigeria John Rawlings was. He's a soul man. I mean, fun to be around with. And those were the times that, as a presidential reporter, you don't have a life. And what I mean by you don't have a life is you don't know when your next move is. And so I permanently, and it was not just me, the colleagues that I work with, permanently you had a bag packed for travel, waiting, because it can happen in the next minute. You're going to Afram Plains, you're going to Hamile in the north, and it comes without any notice, at times at dawn. Okay? At times you'll be sleeping 2 a.m. and there will be a knock on your door. Bo, 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 bo. You open the door and there's a soldier in front of your door. President has that I bring you. You're traveling. Where are we going? I don't know. Nobody knows.
Wow.
And you have to just brush your teeth, pick your bag, and go.
How old were you at this point?
I guess in the early 90s I should be in my early 20s. 24. Yeah, 23,
Yeah,
24,
you
25.
were a young guy with a beautiful, I mean, you didn't know the future, but then with the kind of efforts that you were making at that point, you knew you definitely had a bright future.
Yeah.
Why did you subject yourself to all these sacrifices?
I saw them as a necessity for the growing up process. I think that at certain stages in our lives and in our career, we should look up to some of these sacrifices as a way of building us for the future. And so, well, I took them one at a time and as and when they came. And so that was life as presidential. I have never forgotten this day, myself and a friend of mine. I mean, we were a little bit of nightclub rats somehow. Okay. And so the least opportunity we get to find ourselves in a nightclub. We went to a nightclub, I mean, one night. We were there, it was close to 3 a.m. And then there was an announcement, I mean, over the loudspeakers. If Gayheart, Mensah, and Kwesi Appiah are here, can they report outside? They are needed urgently. We stepped out and there were soldiers standing outside. The president is looking for you. He's traveling in the next hour. We've been asked to bring you. So from the nightclub straight to the house, picked my bag, straight to the castle then, joined the convoy, and then off we went. And very often when you're going, you don't know for how long. You don't know what,
yeah.
At times you set off and 2 weeks you are not back. At times. So, I mean, that was the kind of life that I led as presidential correspondent. But I also admire the fact that throughout the 5 to 6 years that I worked as presidential correspondent, the president never, ever asked a question about a single story that I wrote. And that was very common with President Rawlings. He reads the newspapers, reads the stories about him, and then he'll ask you, where is this coming from? Did I say this? Did I mean this? And so those questions went to a few others. Never ever did I experience that.
Because you reported what you...
I think I was extremely accurate. I think I listened properly. And I think that the desire not to see red ink in what I write served me well.
If you have the opportunity to relive this particular moment, I mean, this particular phase of your life, would you pick it up again?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's that level of adrenaline in journalism that you don't get anywhere else. Absolutely.
I'm sure the only thing you might not do again is go to the club that day. You have a good rest.
Nightclub, no. But a place where I can listen to good music and have good company with people like you. Why not?
Thank you so much. Now, so in that period, was it before that period or in that period or after that you became the host of, a member, or actually pioneer member of the first breakfast show?
Yeah.
I remember so well.
Absolutely. So it was just after I had moved from being the presidential reporter. I first started hosting a program. It was just over a year, and that was called the News Conference on GTV. And then Johnny Aiti, another great journalist, also of blessed memory, one day approached me and said, look, we've started a breakfast show. We want somebody to help us do newspaper analysis. I think you can do it. You be
the best person.
Are you willing? Of course, I shivered a little bit. I trembled. But typical me, I don't say no.
And that was the first time you were doing a sit-down show?
That was the first time.
Okay.
That was the first time. I don't say no to challenges. I don't say no to opportunities, no matter how stretched they are, no matter the extent to which I think I don't have the skill set for this. I will not say no.
Did it take you a long time to settle in?
Fact is, I never settled in.
I like it when my guest goes honest.
I never settled in, and it's not comfortable during a live show on television, particularly when it's about expressing your opinion.
Yes,
and that was what the newspaper analysis was about.
And you can't edit it in the course.
You can't edit it. Yes. Okay. And I mean, of course, you would think through and whatever, and hope that what you're saying makes sense and and it is what ought to be said. And so there is that butterfly, I mean, that I never got over. I only manage it, okay? And growing up and studying a lot more communications, I've come to realize that having butterflies when you are speaking to people, and for the breakfast show, speaking to the entire country is normal. It's about how you manage it. And so I go into the studio, my heart is thumping, whatever.
It's just fine to be nervous.
Absolutely. But when the show gets started, I get into my groove and I lose all that. And so that was what I mean by I never
really settled
Yeah,
in.
it's.
So you did correspondency for the presidency
Yes.
for over 5 years.
Yes.
And then you settled in.
Yeah.
You never settled in as the host, as the newspaper review host for the biggest breakfast show, then
Yes.
on GTV. Which of these two roles would you describe as the most challenging?
Oh, I think reporting from
From the
the
presidency, okay.
was the most
Okay.
challenging.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, most challenging because look, it's not easy to write a story about a person and then just when the story is published, you go and face him. Because we all know that the possibility of making mistakes are there. I mean, that's one. Two, you are writing from the highest office of this land. It comes with its own pressure. And so, I mean, the pressure reporting from the presidency was quite heavy. And again, this was Papa J, full of activity. And so a lot of things to write, a lot of things to do. In addition to all the travels across the country, Papa J never in the office. I mean, he would never spend 1 week in Accra without moving into one region or the other. Yes, that was the most challenging.
Were there days, I mean, you mentioned that you were never a part of the team or the set of people who were questioned for their work.
Yeah.
Did he at any point call you and say, you know what, Gayheart, good work? Did you have any such moments where
He didn't put it that way, but I think he took a particular liking for me. And so there were a few times that just the two of us, I mean, would sit and have a chat. I could go anywhere in his room. I mean, Gayheart picked this for me at times.
Wow.
Maybe watching a film or working. Gayheart, go under the bed. I mean, pull out the box. Yes, pull out the second one. And so, look,
That was how
he
close you were to him.
Absolutely,
Wow.
and he was such an open person that then it makes you question all the kinds of stories that you
you've heard.
hear about him. So that was the kind of relationship that we had, which somehow got destroyed later anyway.
And so I believe in the course of you serving such a great man, with regards to all the things that you had heard about him and then knowing who he was, one of your ambitions or one of your key goals was to make sure the rest of the world see this other side of him. Definitely. Even through your writing and that. And so you would report as you hear and put it where it ought to be, as you said.
Yes, absolutely. But in terms of the kinds of stories that I'm sharing now, I think is a subject for my book, which I'm working on.
You're working on.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. So after so many years in the media fraternity, I mean, the initial part of your media fraternity, you moved to the corporate sector.
Yeah.
How difficult or otherwise was it for you with regards to this move? Was the switch a bit shaky for you? Were you quite determined? Did you need to consult somebody to fit in? I mean, the new role, this was an entirely different sector for you.
Yes, it was. I decided to move for a variety of reasons. One, I think I moved out of the media at age 32 or 33. I was then the acting editor of the Evening News, which was a state-owned newspaper. And so at that stage, I told myself, look, I'm the editor of this paper. Certainly not the flagship of the New Times Corporation, but I was an editor.
Yeah.
Am I going to remain an editor for the next 28 years of my life? Being an editor is the height of being a journalist. Okay, so I started toying with what my future career would look like. I didn't think I wanted to be an editor for 28 years. And then there was this other issue of politics. Okay. I felt largely I was being drawn into politics in one way or the other as a result of my relationship, both within the NDC and the MPP, but particularly within the NDC. And I felt I didn't want to become a politician. I also felt that I was becoming a little bit too strong-minded for the kind of thing that I was doing. And I give you a typical example. So my very good friend, President Rollins, sends me a story. I mean, he wants to see that story on the front page of the Evening News. I took a look at the story and I'm telling myself, no, the story is not going onto my front page. The content is extremely volatile.
Okay.
Can be very libelous against references that have been made. I cannot publish this on my front page. It goes against the professionalism that I think should attend the things we do, the ethics of this profession, and even issues of law. So what do? I looked at the story, read it several times. I said, look, let me rewrite this story. Okay. So I took a sheet of paper, rewrote the story, and sent it back to him to have a look at. Of course, he got back and said, no, I don't like your version. Can you publish the story the way I sent it to you? And I respond and I tell him, Mr. President, if I publish the story the way you sent it, one, it will land Evening News in
trouble. Yes.
It might come with heavy judgment fines. I might be dragged before court to explain the source of my story. It would not help your government for me to say you gave me the story. I might not even be able to reference it to you. Look, this would be a very, very murky thing to push. He insisted. He said he wanted to see the story on my front page the following day in the morning and eventually banged the phone on me. Okay? Those were the days of landlines. There was no mobile phones then. Okay, so he banged the phone on me. I mean, a few times I've said this story. I'm always happy that I had a witness sitting in front of me then who is still alive. I pray for his life. So he asked me, also a journalist, so Gayheart, what do you do? I said, me, forget it. This story is not going into my paper.
You stood with what you believed in.
I am telling you, I did. And
in the face of friendship, in the face of
the
relationship you had built. Yes,
absolutely. And in the face of the highest office of this land, the president of this country. And we are not talking about any other president. We are talking about a fiery, fierce, ferocious Papa J.
Wow.
And so I refused. The following day, I get calls from a number of ministers of state. I mean, from the National Security Coordinator, from the Minister of Information, from others. What have you done to the president? And he's so angry. And then I explained. And I was surprised when almost each of every one of them said, but you to go ahead and publish the story for him. And then I would just smile and I would say, okay, I've heard. I never published the story. And that began the strain in our relationship, which was to go on for a long time until we mended up sometime in 2018 or 2017, thereabout. So, look, those were the issues that I started sitting back and asking myself, do I want to continue with this? I have a litany of them, not just with Papa J, but with other people. I mean, similar situations, and I have to stand my grounds. Okay. So I was getting a little bit worried. I'm telling myself, look, your obstinacy is not going to help you in this job. Of course, principled, I mean, trying to be ethical, trying to be professional, but I mean, for how long? I could have lost my job. I mean, I was working for a state-owned newspaper, and this is the president. I could have lost my job. That didn't happen. Then just when I was going through all this, look, I'm being pulled too much into the politics of this country, the ABCD, whatever. Then I had an offer from Unilever. Yeah. And it was to request me to come and work with them as PR manager. Initially, I declined, but later I went back and went through a process and I was offered the job.
Wow. And so you just basically told yourself, I'm not going to do this for long, and so I need to explore other fields. And then the opportunity just came knocking.
Absolutely.
You grabbed it. Can we kindly have you take your mask off totally? It's distracting. Our viewers are complaining. They think you have a mustache down there.
Oh, okay.
I think you have
I'm
the beard coming down your throat. Anyways, so you settled in there for how long? Unilever, PR
I
head?
worked at Unilever for 4 years. It was a PR manager reported into the corporate relations
department.
So that was the beginning of my love story with public relations.
And as compared to your previous positions, this was far more relaxed.
A bit of pressure, yes.
Yeah.
Better paid, about 3 times than what I was taking at New Times Corporation. Was it easy to do the transition? The transition was not
easy. You had to talk to people and all that.
Yes, I did. But I mean, I don't think there was anybody who tried to prevent me from going. There was one person, I wouldn't mention his name. Again, I mean, the obstinacy and professionalism and principled person that I was, There was this person, a high-ranking minister of state. When he heard I was leaving, he invited me to his office. We had a lengthy chat, and he prevailed on me. He said, look, you're making great impact as a journalist. Why do you want to move into PR? Who would notice you? Whatever. He was close to convincing me. What did not help him was when at the end of the conversation, he opened his drawer, picked an envelope, very fat envelope, and gave it to me.
Then you realize there was an ulterior motive. Not really?
Not really. I just told myself, I have had several meetings with this gentleman, high-ranking public official. We've had several conversations. There are a lot of things that we've done together. He's never, ever offered me money, and I've never even thought of getting money from him. Indeed, when he pulled out the money, I almost rejected it. But, out of respect, I said, look, let me take this money. Whilst I was walking out of his office, I told myself, is this man thinking that he would influence my decision to leave with this envelope?
Money. After all the talk.
I'm telling you, I sat in my car, drove to the office, and that was the day I submitted my resignation letter from New Times Corporate. I was so pissed off.
And so he would not be pleased?
Well, he wasn't pleased. He wasn't, but it's a decision for me to make. Look, I felt belittled. I felt that, look, you thinking you can buy me with this envelope, no matter how fat it is. I'm not talking about the envelope. I'm talking about my career. What next? I've been editor of Ghanaian Times. What with all these politics hanging around me? What do I do next? And I found a way out. Let's talk. I would have preferred him pursuing this issue with persuasive arguments, but not with an envelope. The envelope angered me, and I resigned.
And you resigned that day?
That was when I resigned. The transition was difficult. So you move from the media and you realize that looks like you're losing all your friends, particularly those in high office. Those were days where candidates could afford, then he wasn't president. We had a very good relationship. He would invite me to his house. We would engage in all kinds of debates. And interesting, I would always tell him, no, you will not win this election, you will lose. Wow. And he will ask me, what makes you think I will lose? And I'll give him reasons why I think he will lose. And look, he was so patient. He would listen to me. At times he would smile. We would argue. But he would persistently invite me to his house. So we had a very good relation. To the extent that when he won, the first time he won, his first term, I met him somewhere with Jake and then called Jake. Jake then was he the chairman of the party? I think so. I
think it was national chairman, yeah.
He called Jake and he said, Jake, can you give Gayheart an MPP card? I want to work with him. And Jake goes like, Mr. President, do you know this young man? He said, yes, I know him. Hey, no, I don't think you know the man that you're referring to. This young man is dubious. And then the president says, Jake, I know him. I know him very well, but I like him and I want to work with him. Jake said, Mr. President, that would never happen.
Wow.
So the transition was difficult. Those invitations were no more coming. President Akufo-Addo then, would invite a group of us to his house. We sit, we drink, we eat. It was so with a lot of the politicians, particularly the MPP politicians. So I realized that those invitations had stopped. I had good relationships with the diplomatic community then, strong relationships. I could get visa done for people genuinely, and so if
on recommendation.
And so if you have typical example, I was in the newsroom and there was a colleague who was supposed to go to the US and the notice came to him very short. Check the process. No, he cannot get a visa done within this process.
Appointments, date available, whatever.
So I just heard it. I said, okay, do you want me to help you? And he was shocked. Can you help? I said, yes, I can if you want me to. So I said, you give me your passport. Place the call. That was done. The visa was done for him. And I never abused that.
Yes.
And so I retained that relationship even when I went into the corporate world until, of course, diplomats, they went for 2-3 years, 4 years.
Time is up,
and then I lost all my...
Let me ask this question, all right? I'm sure you might have come across it a few times. Looking at the kind of situations that you were facing in the media field, the plans that you had for your life, your abilities that you had, the kind of opposition that you were facing at some point, and the motivation to finally move into the corporate world and losing all these connects that you had. Of course, the kind of benefits that you would run through at some points in time in your media field. Did you at any point in your corporate journey not regret, well, I think regret is too harsh a word, look back and felt, I shouldn't have come here? Did that happen or occur to you at any point?
No, it never did.
It never did.
Except that I always toyed with the idea of coming back. It was not based upon regret.
Regrets, okay.
And so, for instance, I made a bid to be the managing director of the Graphic Communications Group Limited, and this was in 2011. A number of us applied for that job. 5 of us were shortlisted. We went through the interview process. 2 of us were passed on as meeting the benchmarks to become editor, to become MD of the Daily Graphic. Our names were submitted to the presidency, and then I remember clearly writing to the National Media Commission telling them I'm no longer interested in the job. The reasons for that I keep to myself. For now.
I love that. So after that, along the line, a banking job also came through?
Yes. So while I was at Vodafone, I saw these adverts in the Daily Graphic. In fact, I just ignored it. But then I had a call from a friend who told me that, look, I mean, it looks like this job is made for you. I told him I wasn't interested. He said, no, Gayheart, even if you're not interested, I would suggest that make a bid for it and then later make your decision.
Okay.
And this is advice I give to everybody who finds himself in a similar situation. If you think you have what it takes for the job, if you are toying with the idea, apply for it. Go through the process. Get offered the job and decline it. Rather than sitting back and saying that, oh, I wish I had done it. And so I went ahead, I applied. And then the offer was made to me, but I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave Unilever, particularly because I've had conversations at the highest level of the organization, and they were looking at me as the next head of corporate affairs for Unilever.
So you're looking at growing in the capacity.
Yes. But again, something happened, and typical me, I got pissed off, and I resigned immediately. And of course, it was because I had something else hanging
on the
somewhere.
table.
So I just resigned and moved on.
And then Talo Oil came in, same capacity communications, right?
Yes.
What was so different? What attracted you to picking up that role?
So with Talo Oil, I was at Barclays. I had done 5 years at Barclays. I was already toying with the idea of leaving. I had applied for a job, I remember clearly, applied for head of corporate affairs for Coca-Cola Equatorial Guinea. I had gone through an interview process, and then I get a call from somebody at Talo Oil, introduced himself as their head of HR and said they wanted to work with me. Am I prepared to have a conversation? I said, why not? I went for the conversation, and to cut a long story short, I moved.
Is it fair enough to say you were the hot cake back then? I mean, all these job offers coming your way.
I tell you what. That is why I want to become GJA of the president of the GJA. That's why I'm interested in the GJA presidency. I am persuaded that I've had all these offers as a result of my outings as a journalist.
Yes.
I think I made such an impact just as I set out to do with the opportunities that I got as a journalist. I think I made an impact on television. I think I made an impact when I was a panelist of the Newsfire program on Joy FM. I participated in a number of radio debate programs on Vibe FM, on Groove FM, on Radio Gold. And when I analyzed the offers that came to me and tried to understand why did you think about me in the first place, all questions that I have asked seem to suggest that, we noticed you when you were in journalism. I have done more than 2 decades in the corporate world. I am running my own consultancy at the moment. I have a little bit of time on my hands. I think that the GJA is not moving in tandem with the times of today. I think that as an association, we are not taking notice of the emerging trends and what we need to do to reposition ourselves. I think there's a lot more advocacy we can do as an association. There's a lot more that we can do that can impact on governance on this country. I don't think that as an association we are doing enough, and that is what I think that I can bring to the table and support the association to be able to position itself appropriately.
And I mean, I support this because there's proof of the work that you've done. The impact has been largely felt. across all sectors that you've touched on. So the opportunity, I feel, should be given to you. I mean, not because you're here today, but I mean, I've closely monitored for a while, and I feel, we're just looking forward to that. Let's just wait, it happens, and then we see the impact.
Thanks for your kind words.
At some point, you had to follow Tallow. Let me use the word follow. Follow Tallow Oil to London.
Yes.
And then you left your family behind. Was it a tough decision?
No,
or at that point, had family come in?
Not really. And that was the exciting thing about my move to Tallow. I went with my family.
Okay.
My family was catered for. And so for the period that I was there, my 2 kids were schooling in the UK.
Okay.
School fees paid for by the organization. My wife joined me. I mean, she took a leave of absence and took opportunity to pursue further studies while I was in the UK. And so, yes, I was in the UK with my family.
And then Vodafone.
Yes.
You touched on the story earlier. You know, it was quite challenging and that, but you against all the odds, you decided to come back to Ghana.
Yes.
And then come and work in here. How challenging was your position at Vodafone?
I think that the breadth of my responsibility at Vodafone was one other point of attraction. Okay. So here I was sitting in the office in the UK working at Tallow. Then I get an email from a gentleman who works with Vodafone, and then it goes like, yeah, we have this opening director for external affairs, and I've been asked to contact you to find out if you are interested. If you are not, I'm sorry for sending this email.
Wow.
Yes, that was the tone of the email. I looked at the email and I said, these guys are not serious. I mean, I'm sitting in the UK working with my family here, and you're making me an offer to come back to
And
Ghana.
this is how you sound.
Yes. Don't waste my time, I'm not coming. I mean, so I ignored it. And then there was a second email. Reference to the email I sent to you earlier is to apologize if I offended you.
I'm sure his supervisor called him out and said, did you invite this man to have a conversation with us? He said, yes. Let me look at the email you sent. No, you need to render an apology and resend it again.
And then I remember my principle that, look, don't reject anything. Go for the conversation.
And then reject it at the end.
Make a decision. Yeah. So I responded and I said, oh, hi, sorry for not getting back to you, blah, 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 blah. So the conversation started. I mean, chat with the CEO, chat with the group in London, different conversations. And then the package was offered to me. I mean, took a look at the package. I looked at what I was doing in the UK. And I looked at particularly the responsibility, okay? And so as Director for External Affairs, I was responsible for 5 departments. The Corporate Communications Department, or call it your typical PR department, was one. Then there was a department that was called Corporate Social Responsibility and Sustainability.
CSR, yeah.
Then there was a Government and Regulatory Relations Department. And then there was Risk and Compliance Department. And then the one that freaked me most, Corporate Security. So I was supposed to be responsible for corporate security. And so for 6 years, I was a chief watchman of Vodafone. So I look at all these departments. I told myself, look, I have not been engaged in enterprise risk and compliance management before, and I'm supposed to supervise this. Wow. I don't know what it means. I will do it.
You do it.
Corporate security, well, why not? Interesting.
Let's give it a try.
So it's part of the reason why I moved. My family, kids, wife were not happy I was moving at that time. I asked them, you just watch me. By the time they realized I had packed and I had moved to Accra.
But so that means you left them behind?
Oh, I left them behind. No, but it was for a reason. It was for them to finish the academic year because they were still schooling. Yeah. It was a difficult decision, though, but I needed to move at that time. So whatever arrangements I had to make for them to finish their schooling and all that, I did. And whilst I moved to Vodafone, I was going back to London. For the 6 months that they were there, I think I was going to London almost every month to spend a few days with them. And so that was how come I found myself back in Accra. And while I was working at Vodafone, after 2 years, in addition to the 5 departments, the legal department was added to my remit. So I
making it 6.
I'm no lawyer. I haven't studied law, but I had a responsibility of supervising the work of about 11 lawyers. And again, Gayheart, can you do it? I said yes.
I said, yeah, let's give it a try. I love that. Mr. Mensah, help us understand, okay? What, in your opinion, should be the key motivating factor when moving on to a new job, especially for young professionals? I mean, you clearly have touched every sector. You've had different job opportunities coming your way, but beyond money, well, let's just keep money in there still. What should motivate us? Key motivating factor.
Okay, I think one of the things that the young people need to look out for in making career move decisions is, one, the issue of career progression. Okay, you need to understand even before you move, what is the horizon for this job that I'm moving into. What is the possibility of progressing with this job? I think the second most important thing is opportunities for capacity building. I will encourage the youth to look at organizations that are serious about or that are serious with building the capacity of their staff. Look, no matter how good you think you are at doing any particular thing, if you don't go through refresher training, if you don't rethink what you do, if you don't rethink the process on a continuous basis, you would go stale.
That's true.
Even for us as journalists, we think we know what to do, how to put content together and all that. It helps to sit back, reflect on what you have done, listen to other people, hear other people's experiences and approach. That definitely is something new that you can pick from that. And so capacity building is also very, very important. I think also that you should look at the brand of the organization you're joining and look at the kind of values that drive them. For me, money is the second issue that you should look. It's secondary, not the second. Secondary, as important as it is. Otherwise, you might end up chasing money, and you find yourself in very serious challenges. I have had friends who have moved from one organization to the other because of the offer that was made. And by offer, I'm talking strictly about the money. I have seen them running back to the organizations that they left because they get in and then they realize that, I don't think this is a place I want to be. So for me, these are the three things that you need to look for. Look for the strength of the brand. What are the values? What are the principles that drive the organization? Look at the history of the organization when it comes to training, when it comes to capacity building, and also consider the extent to which the role that you are being offering, the environment has that kind of horizon that allows you to grow and develop and move up.
Thank you so much for that. So with all these experiences that you've shared, it's obvious that you were embodying every position that you took over. Was the decision to start your own little something, retire from working for all these companies, a conscious effort? Was this something you had thought of in the past? Was this something you worked towards, or it just happened?
I had thought of that for a very long time. I had at times, in the years past, felt like just jumping off and going to start my own thing. I had got a little bit fed up with the corporate environment, fed up with 8 to 5, 8 to 12 midnight, and the routine, particularly at the level at which I was as a member of the leadership of Vodafone, Director of External Affairs, different departments reporting into you. You get into the office and you get bogged down a lot more by meetings, adding real value depending upon, relying on your skills, your experience becomes a little bit limited. Of course, I had heads of departments who do most of the job and I supervise, but I thought I was spending a lot more time on meetings than real work, particularly also because I thought I had strong heads of departments that I could rely on. But also I was telling myself that, look, I would retire at age 60, but it would not be to go and sit at home. I definitely would do something. And it's part of the reason why I started teaching, about 4 years ago. So I started teaching at Ghana Institute of Journalism, teaching the master's program, rehearsing whether I could teach when I go on retirement and how it would be like. And then also I was thinking about all these experiences working across industries and what is it that I can share and what impact I can make. So these were the thoughts that I was having. And in 2020, I just thought that, look, I have done 6 years at Vodafone. I have confounded and disproved all the theories that said I wouldn't last 2 years. Maybe it's about time to move on. And so setting up Comscraft is my expression of trying to add value to the body of knowledge, particularly when it comes to communications, when it comes to PR, through training and through providing solutions for other organizations that I might not have been able to reach if I had continued to work with Vodafone. And so far, it's been exciting. It's been interesting.
All right. So that's how Comscraft, came about. And I mean, with your depth of experience in communication and within the media landscape, I want to find out, how have you positioned Comscraft Consult to impact the careers of young media practitioners within your organization and then beyond?
Okay. So Comscraft Consult, one of the strong solutions that we have is training. And so I do a lot of training in various areas of communications and PR. I train in PR strategy, I train in stakeholder engagement, I train in public speaking, I train in content development. So I train across the spectrum of communication and PR, and I do that quite often. I also offer guidance to some institutions, and so I provide consultancy guidance for the Canadian government. I do some work for Parliament, and so I consult for the Speaker of Parliament. I handle his communications for him.
Wow.
And through that, I provide perspectives for the Public Affairs Secretariat of Parliament. I work with the Ministry of Agric. I help them with their communications for various aspects of the work of the Ministry of Agric. I do some work with the University of Ghana. I provide communication consultancy for some of the things that they do at the University of Ghana. And I continue to teach at IPR. Indeed, I am the head of the Committee on Education, Accreditation, and Professional Development for the Institute of Public Relations. And so looking at the curriculum for developing PR practitioners, looking at the content of the training program, participating in the training, delivering lectures, marking scripts, conducting interviews, whatever. I do that also for IPR. You do that also.
Wow, such a busy life.
It is. I keep on telling myself, if I had known that it would have been this busy, maybe after 2 years I would have left Vodafone.
Wow, but it's definitely worth it. I mean, you're building experience all the time, and I believe for all the people connected to you, all the people who are meant to come across you, or people you're supposed to cross paths with, the longer you stay in this field and experience more, the better for them, because they have access to all the things that you experience as well.
You are right.
But of all that, I mean, if Gayheart wants to have fun, what is typical for him? Music, movies, clubbing still?
What I do for fun is no secret. Yeah, I mean, I like listening to music a lot.
Okay.
And so my favorite place, which is no more functioning now because of COVID, is the one-on-one bar at Movenpick.
Okay.
On Fridays, Movenpick always have a music night, and you'll
just
find me
cool
there.
Off there,
absolutely,
in your corner, enjoying your music.
Yes.
Sipping on something nice.
Very often with my boys' friends.
I like that.
Those who are not prepared to go home, and that's where my challenge comes from. I think they are more prepared not to go home than I am. And so by about 12 a.m. when I'm thinking that, I need to get home before Madam gets angry, the fun is now starting.
Yeah, it's now starting. Wow. Guys, if you have a question for Gayheart Mensah, he's right here with us, 0202222073. Kindly send it through. If you're on Twitter right now, the hashtag is #WhyLeaderboardSeries. Put that in there, and then, of course, your answer will be received. Shouts going out to our sponsors, our main sponsors for the show, MTN Ghana, everywhere you go. Carbank says moving forward together, and, of course, Choco by Casapreco. Mr. Gayheart, let me find out from you, as one of the pioneer, TV show hosts in Ghana. I use the word pioneer because GBC is a pace setter in this business. what do you think the current television production teams or our current dispensation of television production or producers can do to make the right impact on their audiences? Way back, you mentioned that the desire to be excellent in what you guys did was the key thing motivating a lot of you guys in there. Are things different now per your experience? If they're different, right direction, left direction, what do you think we can do to improve on how we make a positive impact on our audience?
I think that standards can be a little bit better.
Okay.
I think in a few areas we are dropping the ball as professionals, both as television and as media practitioners. And so I give you a typical example. Even in those days when the GTV breakfast show was the only television breakfast show, one cardinal principle for the show was, call it freshness. Freshness in the sense that any issue, idea, concept, interview that has already been carried somewhere else has no place on the breakfast show.
That's true.
And so if it ought to be an interview, it should be with us first.
First, yeah.
If the interview is held somewhere else, we are not doing interested. And so, typical example, GJA Awards has been held. Somebody declared Journalist of the Year. The award was held the previous night. Those were days when social media was not this active, because today, even before the person leaves the place, there'll be an interview and it will be on social media. Okay? And so for the breakfast show, we should be the first to interview such a person, bring the person into the studio. And so by the time the event ends, whether it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever, we will be there, make arrangements, and make sure the person in the studio the following day. So that was one cardinal principle that guided content for the breakfast show. I think in addition to that was the concept of professionalism, how we conduct our interview, how we show up. I guess it's a little bit common today, and kudos to YFM. I mean, I was very excited when I saw a synopsis.
Yes.
And at least I saw a question guide that was sent to me. I said, wow. So there is still a station that prepares synopsis.
Thank you so much.
It doesn't seem to happen today. I've participated in so many interviews. I wouldn't mention the radio stations. I wouldn't mention the television stations. But nothing like synopsis. It is just a call. And can we interview you? Oh, what's it about? Oh, it's about ABC, blah, blah. Can you be in the studio? Send me your picture. We'll do a finish. What are the issues that about your GJA present? Oh, about this. Finish.
And then you get on there, they throw different things at you. Wow.
It doesn't show. And I keep on telling myself, if this is the way we are approaching, for me as an industry player, fine. But if this is the way we are approaching other individuals in industry, in the corporate world, in politics, and just inviting them by word of mouth, no synopsis, no guidance, nothing whatsoever, then we are not demonstrating professionalism. And that is what I mean by we seem to be dropping the ball somehow. It will never happen with the breakfast show that you come on an interview and there is no synopsis. One other thing that irks me a lot, is to see voice given to an individual on television and that individual is not identified. The name doesn't show up on the screen.
No credit.
No credit. And so you see the person talking. And so if you had missed maybe the introduction by the presenter, the person will talk for about 2-3 minutes and goes off, and you don't know who the person is.
If you don't have time, you pick your favorite and then you're gone. No crawler or anything with the name. Yeah.
And then again, before we go on assignments, and that was both Times, Graphic, GT. Before we go on assignment, we sit and prepare. If it's an assignment that will require the asking of questions, you think through your question, you research your questions, you go and ask. Today we go on assignments and it's a little bit different. So these are some of the issues that I see, and I tell myself, look, seems we're dropping the ball in a few areas and we need to go back to basics.
Are these all things that you put constant efforts into when given the mantle as the head of GJA?
Absolutely. And that is why professionalism stands tall in my messaging when it comes to the campaign. I think we need to rebuild our professionalism. I think, and very often when you talk about professionalism, you talk about capacity building because it is linked to professionalism. There are a few who seem to suggest that, but we've been doing this all over the years. What do you mean by capacity building and all that? I always speak to make reference to a quotation from Bruce Lee, for instance. I mean, we all know Bruce Lee, very astute karatist or fighter or whatever. Bruce Lee says that, look, I don't fear the man who has practiced one kick. Let me get it right.
Yes.
I don't fear the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once. And so he has an arsenal of 10,000 kicks. But he has practiced each of the 10,000 kicks once. I don't fear that man. But I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times.
Yes, mastered it.
Absolutely. That is what capacity brings to us. That is what we mean by, look, no matter how you think you know this trade, this profession, there is something that you definitely learn by sitting and listening. Very, very critical.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. At this point, I'll take questions from our listeners. I have a few of them with me already. This one in here says, Mr. Rev, good morning. Please, I'm Mohammed. I want to ask if it's advisable to continue working for someone who doesn't appreciate your sacrifice. And then secondly, I think I was trying to add a second one, but it didn't come through. Advisable to work with someone that doesn't appreciate your sacrifice?
Just be careful there. We all want to feel appreciated. If you don't feel appreciated, you don't feel wanted, then it is the time for you to look for another job. Until you get another job, and that is one of my principles, until you get another job, unless you know where the next meal is going to come from, you don't move. So you work, you feel there's something wrong with where you work, start scouting. Get another job and move on.
But get your feet on something first before.
Absolutely. I don't move into nothingness. I know I don't do that. Poor Igbe boy brought up at Labadi. I don't have any cocoa farm anywhere. I live on my salary. And so I don't move into nothingness.
This is a personal one from you. Have you ever applied for jobs? I missed. If you mentioned, I missed it. You never really.
So,
I mean, beyond the initial stage.
Yeah. The only job that I would say I applied for is a Barclays job.
Okay.
And it is because I submitted an application before I went through a process. But as I indicated, I was hinted by a friend, and I mean, who was in the HR department. It's like, look, we've had discussions, and it looks like Barclays will want to have you. So we're going to advertise, look out for the dailies,
and run through the process.
With all the other jobs, I get invited. Yeah, I mean, that was what happened.
Okay. Any advice for the youth motivated to do more? Sherry from Community 12. I think this is a bit broad. Any advice for the youth motivated to do more? I think you've dropped a lot of them.
Yes, I think it's about perseverance. I think it's about taking yourself serious. I think it's about preparing. Look, I tell you what. Whilst I was working at Barclays, for instance, I did notice that most heads of corporate affairs in the banks had marketing background. I was looking at becoming the head of corporate affairs. And so what did I do? Of course, I had a lot of training in communication. It was at that point that I decided to enroll and study marketing. And that was a driver in pursuing a master's program in marketing, because I wanted to be ready for the head of corporate affairs job of a bank when it is available. And so that's what I mean by take yourself serious, continue to develop yourself, persevere, and get prepared for the opportunity.
Don't stop growing.
Yourselves. I agree.
Next question in here from this person is Opoku Francis, is at GH Media. Says, what plans do you have to improve the welfare of members of the GJA when given the mantle?
Loads and loads of them. We can go on for about 1 hour talking about plans that I have when it comes to welfare. But it's the approach is multifaceted. I mean, I'll share a typical one with you. I mean, for instance, those media houses that are engaged in print media, okay? When you look at the sourcing of the raw materials, the logistics that they need in order to produce a newspaper, various of these logistics are imported. They attract various levels of taxes. And I think that if you put all the taxes that they pay together, it's a lot. I take the view that it's part of the reason why the private media find it difficult to pay their personnel very well. What if those taxes are removed? It can feed into the conditions of service of media people. And so one of the things I intend to do is to lead a process, have the right conversation, and get government and Ghanaians to understand that the product of the media is public good. The product of the media is utility. Without information, without the media, how does the government even govern? So why do we have to pay all these taxes, which at the end makes it difficult for the journalists to earn a decent living? Why can't we take off these taxes? I'm going to lead a process on that, and that will feed into welfare. Okay. I'm also looking at the possibility of the GJA coming out with his own endowment fund for members. And it's a conversation I've had with a few fund managers. Why can't we have a provident fund of a sort, a contributory one?
Yes.
As a member of the association, you choose what you want to pay. 100 cedis a month, 500 cedis a month, whatever. Over a 5-year period, over a 10-year period, you go on retirement, you get the money that you have contributed plus interest, plus whatever package the fund managers are going to put together for us. I think it would augment what our members get from SNIT as pension. I think it will also support them as they go on retirement. And in addition to that, I'm also thinking about the majority of journalists today working, particularly in the private media, who have not gone through a formal training process. And let me add quickly that the profession that you and I practice do acknowledge that journalists can be trained on the job.
On the job, yes.
Indeed, some of the best journalists we've had in this country are journalists who are trained on the job. But I'm also thinking, given the recent developments, the emerging trends, advances in technology, the situation in which anybody with a mobile phone even tends to call himself a journalist because he can take a video of something that is happening, add a few words to it, send it to a media house, and it is news. Or even share it on social media. So to become a member of the GJA, for instance, if you have not sat in a journalism classroom, can't we have an orientation? 2 months, 3 months? Because despite everything, there is a body of knowledge that constitutes journalism. Some learn it on the job, some learn it halfway through. But journalism has concepts, it has principles, it has models that are taught. So the association can be able to put a training program together and bring in some of our retired journalists. Attract those journalists who have not had any formal training to come through this 3-month program. Of course, there's a fee that will have to be paid for that. The retired journalists who will take them through this training would earn some money out of that. And the journalists will also benefit from the knowledge.
It will mold, it will basically just shape their thinking and shape their professionalism.
And their approach.
Yes.
So that is what I call, two sides of the same issue. Whilst you are fixing the challenge of professionalism,
you're creating an atmosphere for
the retired journalists, feeding into their welfare as well. There are a number of other things that I have in mind that we can talk about.
One more question from our listeners. Any plans to address the issue of mushrooming media schools across the length and breadth of the country? Frida Saki inside Ashalibuchi.
Yes. And it is a conclusion that we need to come to together as members of this association. This question is at the heart of defining the kind of creature that the Ghana Journalists Association wants to be. There is a lot of push for the association to become a kind of union. There are those who also think that the GJA should be a professional association. I am looking at a mix between the two with a lot more emphasis on being a professional association. Let's take the Advertisers Association of Ghana today. They have been able to put a bill together. market. So, okay, let me use the Chartered Institute of Marketing. That would give us a better example. They've been able to put a bill together, go through Parliament. There is a law that is backing the Chartered Institute of Marketing today as the ones who set standards yes, for the practice of journalism in this country. I'm looking at a Ghana Journalists Association under my leadership that will go through a similar process, have a law backing us, and will be responsible for setting standards in this country.
All right, thank you so much for that. But if people want to find out more about your plans, GJA under the presidency of Gayheart Mensah, is there access to any file, website, social media handle? How do they reach out?
So I have a Facebook page, and it's the handle is Gayheart for GJA President. If you go onto that page, you'll see a lot of the activities that I've been engaged in and some of the views that I hold and the kinds of ideas and vision that I have for the GJA. Yes.
All right, so they should just search for Gayheart Mensah
for GJA President.
For GJA Presidency,
yes.
And then, let's make it happen. Charlie, what is good here is good. I mean, support is all we need at this point to make sure we move from where we are to a better place. That is all he's asking for. And so if you have the mandate, if you have the power to make this happen, give it a thought, all right? If you want to find out more information, search for Gayheart Mensah for GJA President and go convince yourself and make the right decision. It all falls back to all of us. This is a profession we're in. This is our life. And any country that doesn't take journalism serious is bound to fail. You can't tell your story well, you can't communicate with your people, and your people will not be able to communicate with you as well. So this, I think, is a big call. I mean, I'm calling on all the stakeholders at this point to pay particular attention. If you want to make a consideration, consider Gayheart Mensah, and let's make it happen. What do you want to be remembered for? I think you touched on something similar in the course, but let's just break it down again. In the near future, after GJA presidency has happened, after you retire from active business, what would you like to be remembered for?
We very often refer to the media as a fourth estate of the realm. I believe you and I know that today, if anybody refers to us as fourth estate, it's out of placating us, or it is said in jest. Okay. But I think in practice, we are and ought to be the fourth estate of the realm. I want to be remembered for, as the president of the GJA, when I win, as that president who led a process that ensured that the GJA became the fourth estate of the realm in very pragmatic terms. And I'm talking about a GJA that participates in the conversations that are held at the highest corridors of power in this country. I'm talking about a GJA that makes significant input into policy, into regulations, and into laws in this country. I'm talking about a GJA that plays a strong partnership role with the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive in the management of this country. I'm talking about a GJA that supports good governance, not just as expressed in corporate documents, but also in the political context of this country. And I'm also talking about a GJA that plays the right advocacy role on behalf of the majority of Ghanaians who do not have a voice. These are the issues that I hold dear, and these are what you would see when I win the GJA presidency.
All right, well said, guys. 27 after 11. Still in here, Why Little Boat series with Mr. Gayheart Mensah. He said so much. If you want to play back this interview, go on our YouTube, Y1079 FM. Search for Y1079 FM on our Facebook, and then click on the like button. Go on there, just search through the videos. Put in the hashtag Why Little Boat series. Pretty much, it's going to just draw up all the information. We have the infographics on the bits and bits of all that he said. Go on there and pick it. Also, quick reminder: search for Gayheart Mensah for GJA President. Like the page, share to your friends, and let's spread the word, okay? Quick shout's going out to CarBank. CarBank says it's super easy and fun to bank with them now through the short code *771#. Mobile banking is super easy now. You can send money to friends and family, push and pull funds from your bank account to mobile money, and then vice versa. You can replace, renew, or even update your Ghana card right from the CarBank *771# service. As simple as ABC. Register for free by dialing *771#. Make the CarBank mobile banking service your preferred choice. You can also pay your water bills, electricity bills, DSTV, Go TV, box office, and then purchase airtime and data bundles for your friends and family as well as yourself. Just dial *771#. Check your account balance on there. Do all that. There's no need going to the bank. Now with the fight against COVID-19, so movement, you forfeit to restrict yourself small. For more information, kindly visit our website www.carbank.net or contact us via email carbank or customer care at carbank.net. All right, call us toll free on 0800 500 500 and let's bank together. Carbank, forward together. Now we're in Momo month, and now is the time to activate your MTN Momo account. Just dial *170# for MTN mobile money. Select your 4-digit PIN number and follow the prompts. The best part is all new Momo subscribers form now till the end of September stand a chance of winning a cool 50 Ghana cedis whenever they make more than 3 transactions on MTN Momo within the first week of registration. The more you send and receive cash this MTN Momo month, the higher your chances of winning with us. Another big thing, your first transaction of up to 100 Ghana cedis every day is also free of no charge. No service charges coming alongside with it. Activate now and then just Momo it everywhere you go. Let's make it happen. Mr. Gayheart.
Yes,
So final words to our young professionals. I mean, people who are trying to work their way up the career ladder, media practitioners and all that. People who find themselves in your shoes, way back in the media fraternity, in the career as well.
It's never an easy journey. Whether in the media, in the corporate world, it's never easy. But it's doable. It's doable when we develop awareness for the environment within which we work. Every environment comes with its own pressures, challenges, platforms, and opportunities. And as those who work within that environment, we need to be conscious of these levers in order to know which to press, what amount of pressure to apply, and it helps in creating the necessary impetus that we require in order to make the step that we are looking for. If you are outside the work environment, it's about getting very great clarity around what you want to do, looking out for what is required for what you want to do, and taking those baby but steady steps towards achieving what you have set yourself to. At the end of the day, is also about the extent to which we place ourselves to take opportunity of advantages that present themselves. There's a little bit of luck that comes in, but luck always comes only when you are prepared. Luck alone cannot drive you towards your ambition. So there's a certain level of seriousness that we need to apply. I mean, in our growing up process, there's a fair amount of assiduousness when it comes to our approach to work. And I think with that, we'll be able to make the progress that we are looking out for. As I said, you need to be focused. You need to be clear in your mind what you want to achieve, and you need to work towards it.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. It's been a wonderful morning on here, Wiley the Boat Swiss. I believe today's has been a special one. My big brother came through. He's touched everything we're still trying to touch. And he's still in the process. He's still in the business, active business of training the next level of media practitioners here in Ghana, the next level of communicators in Ghana across every field. He is the currency of Comscraft consult and an aspiring president of the GJA. I believe we've spoken so much about journalism in Ghana today, media practice, corporate world, and then the likes. Go ahead, connect with him on social media, Facebook, Gayheart Mensah for GJA president. Get in touch with him. And I mean, if you have questions beyond what we've said or what we've discussed, he's ever ready to have a conversation with you. Sir, thank you so much for spending time with us this morning.
Thank you, Reverend. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Congratulations. You found the one station that plays Ghana's best urban music.
YFM.
Listen to YFM 107.9 Accra, 102.5 Kumasi, and 97.9 at Takoradi.